My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. So I thought I would go ahead and shock everyone by chopping off some of my hair. I actually didn't know I was going to do it until like last night. I had a hair appointment today that I had for a couple of weeks, not even a couple of weeks, a week or something, because I just ruined my own bangs by trimming them a bunch of times and kind of getting off track. So I was intending just to go in and get a little trim and then have Rosemary fix up my bangs and kind of reset them. But then I was looking at inspo pictures for the bangs, and every single picture that I ended up picking and saving had this length of hair. I've kind of been struggling lately to just leave my hair and have it look good. Like bangs especially, because they got all weird on this side when I trimmed them myself. But even the rest of it, it's just, a lot of times I've been just putting it up because I feel like if I just leave it, if I like wash it, scrunch it, do all my things, and just leave it, it just doesn't quite look right. I've just been kind of struggling with it. So I wanted something that I felt would be a little bit easier to just kind of shake and go, if that makes sense. And I think this will, because there's a little bit less weight pulling it down. There's a little bit more texture in the sides. It's a bit of a blunt cut, which is what I prefer around the edge. It's not like super deeply layered, but the way that it's textured around the edge will kind of keep it out of my face, even when I'm just kind of like letting it down and letting it go. And I would like to wear my hair down for most of the summer without it getting all up in my business and without it getting gross looking and without it being too hot. And I feel like this is the perfect situation for that. It still looks a little weird because it's freshly cut. I feel like I always look quite dweeby between the time when I get my hair cut and when I wash it myself and style it myself again. So I'm in for like a week of looking a bit dweeby, and I can't not film, so sorry I'm a bit dweeby right now. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. It's my monthly check-in. I'm talking about how it was to be on a budget this month. There has never been a more dramatic about face, because if you saw my check-in last month, you will know I was on the struggle bus with shopping addiction. And luckily, because I have this budget in place, my shopping addiction doesn't cause me to go off the rails, go into debt, spend all of my savings, etc., like it used to do. It just causes me to obsessively spend time trying to decide how to spend the budget that I do have. This month, it was like when I switched back to the sane self that I fostered with my no-buy year. I switched back with a vengeance. And in terms of buying, which I will cover in more detail in my future video about what I actually bought this month, in terms of that, I bought like a handful of staple things at the beginning of the month, like toothpaste. I replaced my vitamin C serum. I got a sports bra. Like these are just things that I was like, I have to get. Like I need another sports bra. Just little things like that. And then all the rest of the month, I was like, I don't want to spend any more of my budget. And I just stopped thinking about it. I stopped planning. I toyed a little bit with maybe buying a sweater or two from Aritzia, but then I just forgot about it, stopped going on the website. I was very focused on the projects that I was doing this month, and I was working really hard, long hours, getting up early, staying up late to finish work stuff. And I just felt like I didn't have time. But the thing is, that was what was going on last month too. I was so under pressure and I was working so hard that I felt like I didn't have any breathing room for my brain, and it drove me to want to shop as relief from the stress. I've been stressed this month too, but it's like and I've been working really hard too, but it hasn't. I think I just haven't been as unhappy as I was. For some reason, I kind of had the balance back. I've been taking better care of myself, and I just haven't allowed the stress to drive me into that place of needing escapism so desperately that I was shopping as my kind of only resort. So I feel like I kind of know why I did better, and I also kind of don't. It's a bit of a mystery, and it's just a testament to the fact that we're gonna have ups and we're gonna have downs. Like there are gonna be times when it just feels like the end of the world, that you can't buy that sweater because it's over your budget, or you can't buy that lipstick because you're on a no-buy. It's going to happen, and it's going to go away, and then it's going to come back like it did for me last month. That feeling is going to come back. And I think that the takeaway, the really important thing, is that if you've done a no-buy, or if you've been on a budget and had to wait out those feelings, you know that they'll go away. So when you're sitting in them and you're just like, how can it be that the world is so unjust that I've gotten myself into this situation where I can't push this button to buy this thing, or I can't have this thing and wear this thing? Like, it just feels like pain. When you're sitting in that moment wanting it so badly, you can tell yourself, even though it's hard to believe in the moment, you can at least tell yourself, this too shall pass. And you know from your own personal experience that it is very true. And I got that experience, like, again, a super strong dose of it last month and this month combined, because did it ever pass? I mean, it was just gone. And I had like $120 of my budget for almost the whole rest of the month. And I just sat on it, and I was just like, whatever. And then a really interesting thing happened, which is that this week, which is the last week of the month, I spent a little bit of it, but I did it in this really casual and sort of practical way. I did it in what I've deemed a very non-obsessive way. And that felt amazing, because a lot of the way that I've spent my budget this year has been kind of obsessive. Like, I've done a lot of comparison shopping. I've like added things to my cart and taken them out. I've like whittled carts down and been like, do I want to spend this much of my budget? Do I want to spend this much? And then finally been like, and I've also really been obsessed with like, is this the right thing to buy? Or is there a chance that something else is going to come along in the future that costs the same amount that would be a better choice? And it's almost like that's what's been causing me to hold on to my budget, because I'm like, what if something else comes along? What if I regret that I spent it all and that I don't have enough to buy the perfect thing? What if I find the perfect thing and I can't buy it? Like, those kinds of obsessive shopping feelings have been sometimes guiding me. And I had a really interesting experience this week, which is that I had to go to CVS to pick up a prescription, and I ended up buying a lipstick. And it was because after my video shopping my stash talking about how I wanted brown lipstick, literally like all 22,000 of you were like, Maybelline raw chocolate. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of this. And so I looked it up, and I looked at the pictures, I looked at the Temptalia dupes, don't have anything like it. And I was just like, this looks like it could be my actual perfect lipstick. And I know that I like that formula, the Maybelline matte sensation, I think is what it's called. It just says matte, but it's the Maybelline basic matte formula. I know that I like it because I have my one other kind of drugstore lipstick purchase from this year, which is in this formula, and it's the Beige Babe. It's Maybelline Beige Babe, which I ended up getting as an alternative to Kim KW from Charlotte Tilbury, because I wanted that twiggy nude, that super, super concealer lips nude. And a bunch of you were like, Maybelline Beige Babe, and it turned out to be the perfect one, and I'm getting a ton of use out of it. I've even started using it as a blush, actually, since many of the comments on that last video. But here's raw chocolate. I know that this video isn't supposed to be about this, but I know that a lot of you will wish that I had swatched it because I'm talking about it. So there it is. It's just more brown than all of the other lipsticks for which I shopped my stash this past month to be kind of like the browns that I am satisfying myself with. Because I had shopped my stash for all my browns so that I wouldn't want browns, I kind of had a moment where I was like, do I really, doesn't this defeat the purpose of shopping my stash for the browns? But again, I've been working on sort of loosening my obsessive grip on perfectionism, and that has not only to do with perfecting my life by buying perfect stuff, which is kind of what it used to always be, but also like a grip on the perfectionism about how I conduct my YouTube channel, how I spend my time, how I conduct my daily life, how I conduct my budget. And that's not to say that I'm willing to bend or break the rules of my budget, because I do think it's important to have routines in place and rules in place that we follow to better ourselves, especially when we feel like we need them. Like someone who has in the past really had a bad relationship with shopping does need rules in place. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that I'm loosening my grip on obeying the rules I set for myself. It's just that there's following your rules, and then there's this kind of like pervasive squeezing perfectionism in daily life that causes me, at least, to worry and second guess and do things like be in the CVS I found raw chocolate, which all of you guys had recommended. I looked at it and I was like, this is different from what I have and it looks incredibly perfect. I do want it. It's a low priced object. I mean, compared to the other lipsticks I've been lusting for, I have the money in my budget. I'd barely spent any of my budget, but this perfectionism causes me to be like, but shouldn't I just be, didn't you just shop your stash? Shouldn't I just be like, to squeeze myself and to try to be like, don't stick a toe outside of the little box of how it should blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, girl, just buy the little lipstick. Like, it's okay. And it's within my rules. And I felt good about it. I didn't have feelings like, I'm not sure I really want it. I just had these feelings of like, am I towing the line kind of? And I have been kind of practicing this month, just washing those feelings away. And so I bought it and it was so lovely because it didn't make me feel like a burst of ecstatic dopamine. Like I wasn't like, the rest of the day, like I bought a thing, you know, kind of how I used to be. I was like, I'm here already for another purpose. I happen to have found this lipstick that I happen to have recently heard about. What luck. And I have the money for it in my budget. What luck. And I was like, I'm going to grab it. And then I put it on when I got home and I was like, I love it so much. Yay, this is great. Like it was all good and no yucky. And the reason it was all good is because I'm budgeting and also because I didn't allow it to be a thing that turned me into a stress case. And that's good. That was good. And I had a second similar experience with clothing. So I was walking home from work on a Friday. It was yesterday. So, and I'm filming this on a Saturday. It was Friday. And it's kind of it was like the first moment that I had gotten to the end of all of these many jobs that I have had to be constantly working on now for like 2 months, because I've had a big thing I've been having to work on all the time. And I have a little respite before I have to start working on it again. So I kind of had this actual Friday afternoon after work. I had a meeting in downtown. And then after that meeting was over, I had a couple hours where I was like, I'm off work. Like work is over, TGIF bitches, which just almost never happens to me because the work kind of never ends. I always have to like go home and film or edit or whatever. But I did have this little Friday. So I was walking home. I wasn't planning to shop. I wasn't craving to shop. I was already happy. I was already feeling good. And I was looking forward to coming home and reading and then later having dinner with Joe. So I was like, I was experiencing that baseline of contentment that I always talk about wanting to foster, rather than having to use shopping to cram joy into me, right? So it was already there. And I walked past COS, and I'm actually really glad that I ended up going into COS and making a purchase, because I'm really interested in researching it and talking about it in my corporate ethics video. So that will be upcoming. I think it might kind of be the closest to fast fashion that I've come this year, except for maybe the Costco underwear, but actual kind of fast fashion shops. And I've been wondering if I would ever get to the point where I had occasion to actually truly talk about fast fashion. And I think it might be coming up. So it was interesting in that way as well. But they're having a sale, and they almost never have a sale. I freaking love the aesthetic of this shop. I love that they use, for the most part, natural fibers. I have a couple of pieces from COS from the past, all of which I have never stopped wearing, and they've held up really well through several washes. Like, it was just this moment where I was like, oh, COS is having a sale. And I just happened to be walking by. I walked in. I enjoyed myself trying on a bunch of stuff. And they ended up buying 2 pieces that I know are good practical purchases. This shirt is one of them. It's sort of like a boxy, tunic-y top. It was way on sale. But it's not the kind of thing that I would usually obsess over. Like, it's not the kind of thing I would be online, like putting it in, taking it out of my cart, being like, is it the right thing? Is it my style? Blah, blah, blah. I just had put it on and I was like, you know, I'll wear this all summer. I'll feel good in it. It's very relaxed. It's sort of androgynous. It just fits with this sort of like baseline of my style. And I was like, and I need stuff like this, because I learned during my no-buy year that the part of my wardrobe that is the most spare is very, very, very hot weather clothing. And the very, very hot weather is about to hit in LA. So I was just like, you know what? It would be smart for me to pick this up. And I picked up another top too that was very smart but simple in a similar way. I'll talk in more detail about that in my upcoming video about exactly what I purchased this month. But all three of those experiences, right? Like the drugstore lipstick and buying those two tops on sale at COS had this same tone of kind of casual, practical, non-obsessive shopping that I made space for myself to do because I had not spent my budget earlier in the month. And that's what I really wanted to check in about. I wanted to share those experiences because I think that that's something that I haven't really experienced. And it's interesting, it's 6 months in to my budget. And it was the 6-month point of my no-buy year when I really, really felt a change. Like to me, my no-buy year is split into the first half of the year and the second half of the year. The first half of the year, my brain hadn't changed yet. And I was sticking to my rules, but my brain was like kicking and screaming. And the second half of the year, my brain started to change and I started to really see myself and I started to have to really dig deep into my issues basically because it was almost like the layers started to peel back and I started to feel like a different person. So I wonder if this might be a thing that I'm going to learn more about in the coming months. There's something wise about just abstaining from obsessively choosing what you're going to buy and just not buying stuff, kind of like little mini no buys in the middle of budgeting months, because it makes room for a less frenetic, a less troubled, a less mincing relationship with shopping itself and with stuff and with stuff. All right, I changed my camera battery. We're good to go, but I do want to tell you the story about the bowls as quickly as I can because I think Joe might return home from some work that he's doing while I'm filming this video. And I don't want him to be here when I'm talking about the bowls. He knows what happened. I mean, it's a story about something that happened between the two of us. It'll just be easier for me to like get it all out and tell it naturally if he's not here. So I'm going to tell you right now. Also, Joe hasn't seen my haircut, so maybe you guys will get to witness his reaction. I wonder what he'll say. I didn't tell him. I didn't really tell him. I was like,
I might be getting a choppy changey.
And he was like,
a choppy changey?
And that's the extent of the conversation that we had. Anyway, here is what happened with the bowls. So about 3 years ago at the Salvation Army in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we used to live when I was in graduate school, I purchased a set of 6 pretty small bowls. They're like 5 or 6 inches across and about less than 2 inches deep. So small, wide, shallow bowls. And they're beautiful. They're white porcelain with blue Japanese style net pattern on them. And we really like Japanese inspired or Japanese made bowls and other kinds of dishes. Like our plates are like a wave pattern. That's just kind of like our vibe for our dishes. So I had purchased these bowls. They're perfect for us. And we use them for everything. So Joe uses them a couple at a time at his breakfast. I use them for making my eggs in the morning. We use them for like eating little things. We use them, eating little things. What are you talking about, Hannah? We just use these bowls all the time, right? So we're constantly using and washing these bowls. They're like our most used kitchen items for some reason. For us, little bowls are the thing that we use the most. And over time, Joe has broken almost all of them. So we had gotten down to 3, I think, and I think 3 was working because Joe uses 2 for his breakfast and I use 1 for my breakfast, and then he usually does the dishes right after breakfast, so then they would be clean again when I was cooking dinner or maybe the next morning. So we were like, I knew that there was sort of a bowl situation looming, but we were doing okay. I also had these 2 other beautiful ceramic bowls, handmade ones that were a little bit bigger and not as ideal, but if all 3 of our bowls were dirty, what had started out as 6 bowls, mind you, and there used to be plenty. We had these 2 other bowls, so I was able to kind of like rotate them in if I needed a bowl. I can't believe I'm telling this whole bowl story. I hope this isn't like too much. I hope it's like too much background, too much detail. Okay. The point is, Joe broke the other 2 bowls. He breaks everything, I've come to learn. Like that's the deal, right? I do the cooking, Joe does the dishes, and all of my dishes break one by one. Nothing is permanent. It's okay, because it's just, I can't be invested in my dishes not breaking or our dishes not breaking because he breaks everything. It's fine. I'm not mad. So he broke the third bowl. So we only had two. One morning last week, I was starting to make my eggs and Joe had already made his breakfast. So he had used the two bowls that we had, and I opened the cabinet, there were no bowls. I opened the other cabinet and I looked for like the backup bowls, and then I remembered that they were both broken too. And there literally aren't any. We don't have that many dishes. We're kind of dish minimalists. And so I had to go get the smallest one of my cooking bowl, like a serving slash cooking bowl, but it's not the ideal shape or size for what I was using it for. And I was using it, and then I turned to Joe and I was like, we need more bowls. This is where the real story is beginning. I'm sorry that I had to give you so much background information about our dishes to tell the story. So I turned to Joe. I was also, I have to admit, I was a little bit in a bad mood. Like I was a little flustered. I've been very stressed because of all of the work that I have. But I turned to Joe and I was like, we need more bowls. And he said, and I totally understand why he said this, because it's just, I totally understand. But he said something like, I've heard that before. Or I think what he said was,
oh, I've heard that before.
And I was like,
What do you mean?
and he was like,
well, how many times have you said over the course of our relationship, we need more bowls, and then bought bowls?
Now, we've been together for over a decade. So in his defense, yes, there have been a number of times over those 10 years, and we've lived in a number of different locations together, during which I've said, I think we need X kind of dishes. And then I have done a bunch of research and in my old obsessive way, found what I thought were the perfect dishes and then tried to get Joe to like sign off on them or agree to them. It definitely is, again, to Joe's credit, a thing that has happened in our life before my no-buy year. That I would be like, we need small plates, we need more bowls, we need wine glasses, we need this. And then I would be like, getting the thing, and it would be this whole thing that he would kind of watch and not judge, because Joe, bless his little heart, he's very judgmental about certain things, but he really does let me be in other ways. Like he really let me solve my own issues when it came to shopping. He didn't try to get in amongst me and like make me fix it, which I will be forever grateful for, because it made it so much easier to actually go ahead and fix it for myself. But he would always kind of watch and be like,
does it really need to be like this? Like, do we really need to be like this about our dishes and all of this stuff?
I would be like,
Yes, we really do. You don't understand me. You don't understand my heart.
so Joe said this casual thing, like, I've heard that before. How many times have I heard that before? And I got so upset. And we started fighting. And I thought I was upset because he was being dismissive of the emotional labor that I have always done to try to keep the right number of the things that we need around. And I felt like he was being like, oh, Hannah, you're always buying bowls and it's just so wearying. And I felt like he was not honoring the fact that he uses those stupid bowls and he needs those bowls. And if we had no bowls, he wouldn't be able to make his breakfast. And the fact that he has bowls is due to me. And the fact that they're nice and that they're sturdy and that they were inexpensive because I had been at the Salvation Army and I had spied them. And the fact that I always have my little feelers out for the right things at the right time. Like I got so mad, and I thought I was mad because I was like, you benefit so much from my work, this kind of work that I do, to see that there's a need in our home and to fill that need. And I'm doing that right now. I'm saying that we need bowls, and I'm bringing it up with you so that we can kind of make a joint decision. And you're acting in this scornful way, like, oh, heard that before. You're always saying we need something. So that was what we kind of started fighting about, because that was what I thought I was feeling. But my feelings were so disproportionate to that, because that stuff is like old news in our relationship. Like I do certain kinds of labor, Joe does certain kinds of labor. For the most part, we are really grateful for each other's labor and we do a pretty good job of thanking each other for our labor. But sometimes one or the other of us starts to feel taken for granted and a little bit resentful. And then we're like, you don't understand what I do. And then the other person's like, you're right, I really, really am grateful, but also you're reacting. And then the person who was like that is like, yeah, you're right. This is probably just me feeling my feelings. Like, it's old news, and it's never been like this total freak out level of reaction. Like, it's never been like that about this kind of labor, because I do a lot of emotional labor in our relationship. I think in almost every heterosexual relationship, the woman deals with a lot of things that can be defined as emotional labor. But Joe is also a very emotionally clued in man, and he does his own fair share of emotional labor too. So it's not like a deep-seated problem that has never been addressed. Again, like I was like so mad, and he was like,
Where is this coming from? Why have goals triggered this huge reaction of anger?
while we were fighting, he was saying that, and I was like,
I don't know.
I was literally like,
I do not know. I think it's this.
so it was the morning. I left the house in a huff. I walked to work, and about halfway through the walk to work, it hit me what was going on. And I was like, oh shit. I had been wrapped up in trying to talk with Joe, and so I hadn't had a moment to like reflect and try to figure out why I was so angry. But as soon as I got 10 minutes to do it, I figured it out. And this is what it is. I am very proud of the fact that I have not tried to replace our functional homewares in almost 2 years. And that is because of my no-buy year. So obsessively buying, or thinking that we needed more stuff than we actually need, or thinking that we need to replace our bowls because they're not nice enough, or because they're chipped, or because they no longer serve the purpose I think that I haven't done that since before my no-buy year. So I haven't said we need bowls in almost 2 years, or anything like it. I haven't said we need plates. I haven't said we need to replace our old chopsticks because these ones, the tips are broken. I haven't said any of that. Every time I've observed something, a hole in our kitchen, a broken thing, a subpar thing, every time I've observed that, I have just said to myself, this is fine. We can live with this. This will do. And I've said that to Joe too on many occasions. I've been like, it's okay. We don't need a new one. The one we have is fine. We don't need more. We can just use these other ones. I've been saying that now for a year and a half solidly because of my no-buy year. And it's been hard. It was hard. It's been a hard journey. It's hard won. And I have changed as a person. And I want Joe to see that. And he does, for the most part. I mean, he worships my no-buy year. Our lives have changed. Our relationship has changed because of it. And he is so grateful, and he's so glad that I went through that. He's so happy with the way things are now compared to how they were before. But when he said, I've heard this before, we need bowls. Like, how many times have you ever said that? When he said that, it felt like he was not honoring how much work I've done and the fact that I have changed. It felt like he wasn't seeing that I've changed. And to me, my we need bowls that I'm saying now is so different from the we need bowls that I've ever said in the past. Because we need bowls used to be an extension of my shopping addiction. And it used to be evidence of my problem. It was part of my problem. When I said to Joe this week, we need bowls, it was because we really actually do need bowls. And it was informed by a much more honest and robust and thrifty self. It was the new Hannah saying we need bowls. And I understand why he reacted in the way that he did. You know, I don't think that it's like his fault that he failed to take into account that I've changed, that I've released myself from my addiction, and that it's like, I understand why he said what he said. I went off the rails because I felt like he was implying that my observation that is true, that we actually do need bowls, was like a return or a resurgence of my old behavior. I felt like he was conflating the new we need bowls with the old we need bowls. And it made me so upset and sad and angry that he didn't see the difference. And that was why I got super mad. And it's not my fault either. I mean, it's just, I think it's actually probably something that happens with recovery from any kind of compulsive behavior. Does this make sense? I hope it makes sense, because it makes so much sense to me. When it hit me, when I got to work, I immediately started texting Joe and I was like, oh my gosh, I figured it out. Here's why I was so mad. It has to do with the fact that I've changed and that I feel like I'm an addict in recovery and you're acting like I'm still an addict, because I was pointing out that we actually need bowls, but we really do need bowls. And he was like, I get it. I had to tell you guys, because isn't that interesting? Like, isn't it fascinating? My no by year was over 6 months ago, and I'm still learning stuff about how I feel about it and stuff about how I've changed. And I'm learning like how to navigate being a person who does buy things from time to time, and a person who does need to like make sure that she has the bowls that she needs and that her partner needs in their cabinets. I'm learning how to do that without it being that other thing. And I didn't realize that I had such strong feelings about how hard that is. And I didn't realize that I was so proud of the fact that I'm doing that, until Joe said something offhandedly that made it seem like he didn't see that I'm doing that work. And he does see. It just, you know, he really, really does. So it's not like I'm sitting here being constantly mad because he doesn't see it. It was just in that moment we had a miscommunication. And then I was like, wow, there's a lot here. Like, these feelings are really powerful. So that was a story about the bowls. I successfully made it through without Joe coming home. I might make it through the whole video without him coming home. So you guys might not see him reacting to my haircut, because I don't have really anything more to say. My last note is to just say that I'm still really busy and that some things are still behind. So the check-in is closer to the beginning of the month than it was last month. It's the first date after the first of the month. So that's the date on which my check-in traditionally is posted. So we're on time with this video, but you may have observed that the video about corporate ethics should have gone up before my check-in, and it hasn't gone up yet. So the video in which I investigate the businesses from which I purchased anything with my budget in May, ideally that would have gone up last week, but I just haven't been able to get it together yet. Those videos take so much time to prep. So unlike this one where I can just like look at the notes I've been taking over the course of the month and just sit down and film, unlike almost every other video, I really need to have time to work on the video before I post it. And I just haven't had that time this month. And I'm a little bit worried. I really don't want to get behind on that project, but I'm a little bit worried that I'm not going to have the time. And so I might do 2 in 1. I might decide to combine the May and June corporate ethics video. Either that, or I might have to push the May one back even further and do them very close together towards the end of the month. So it's just a situation where those videos are getting kind of like, they're starting to float further and further apart from the month that they're about, but that's okay. I mean, it's going to have to be, because I want to keep going. I want to keep filming and posting, and I can't like put the rest of my work and my life on hold to do all of the research that I need to do to make that video. But I'm not going to not make it. I'm going to do it. It's just that the timing might get a little bit wonky. But everything else should be on time. My favorites video, my empties video, all of those videos that I always do at the beginning of the month, the video about the things that I purchased in June, all of that is coming up very shortly. Things are pretty much back on track with my channel, even though things are still a little bit bananas in the life of Hannah. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching this, my check-in about how it was to be on a budget in the month of June. It was an interesting one. Still stressful, but I'm glad that it was a recovery compared to how May went. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for being here for me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all of the different kinds of support that you offer me. Thank you. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself this week so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.